either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And you know what, Chris? God damn it, we are going to have fun with this episode. So help me, or I will turn this podcast around.
Yeah, I think we can pretend to have fun.
I think we will.
Yeah. So this week we are watching the movie National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yep.
The original.
Yeah, this was actually supposed to be coming out on Father's Day.
Yeah, because, you know, honestly, this movie does kind of still embody... This is very similar to how my vacations went as a child.
Yep.
Granted, there were parts that were not similar whatsoever. And did we go to Wally World? No. We went to Nebraska and South Dakota and North Dakota. You know, the fun places.
Our road trips were a bit different.
Fair. You had somewhere cool to drive, at least.
Yeah, Europe.
It sounds cool on paper, anyway.
Yeah. But no, we had to delay this one for one specific scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Just because riots were happening and
we're definitely going to cover the scene, because even when it was filmed, it was still awkward and, definitely
socially unacceptable. Socially insensitive.
It's very socially insensitive. And, I don't know, there's parts of this movie in general that, I don't think comically would fly nowadays as a whole. Mm-hmm. But this movie is definitely... It is the pinnacle of what it was, which was the king of comedy at the time. So, yeah. It's still something that a lot of people hold on to. There are parts of it that I think are still really great. We'll talk about some of the iffy bits throughout.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was watching it, there's actually a pretty good commentary with Chevy Chase, Dennis Quaid, Simmons, who is a producer. I did not write his first name down.
Simmons is both a first and a last name.
Yeah. Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Rusty.
Yes.
Dana Barton, Dana Barron.
Barron, yeah.
My writing is atrocious.
It's okay.
She plays Audrey, and yes. Harold Ramis, who was the director.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where a good chunk of my resources for this movie came in, was mainly the commentary from this group.
Yeah, and their commentary was, if you're a commentary watcher, it is a fun commentary, I think, to watch.
Oh, yeah, no.
It was more entertaining than some of the other ones I've watched, where, it's a lot of silence and then someone being like, oh, I remember that scene. It sucked. This one was actually pretty engaging.
Oh, yeah, watching Family Man with Danny Elfman's commentary.
Not recommended. But this one, the commentary, if you like watching commentary with movies, this one's actually really engaging and fun.
Yeah, so... But yeah, before we get into the review, Chris.
Yep.
What drink do we have today?
We have, well, for us, room temperature beer.
Because that is what we feel Uncle Eddie would be drinking.
Yes.
And what brand is it?
It is, of course, America's favorite, Budweiser.
Not that piss water light.
No, full Budweiser. Oh, it tastes like college. Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Man, I haven't had Budweiser in a long time.
I will admit I am much more of an ale or European beer drinker. So I don't know how much of this I will finish willingly.
Yeah.
I will say that a Budweiser, this is not the temperature they should be drank. If you're gonna drink them, ice cold is the way to go. Because then at least it's kind of refreshing. However, in the movie, not only is none of the beer shown to be refrigerated, on multiple occasions they drink it straight out of a desert, so you know that's not cold beer.
Yeah. Anywho, so we were, when we picked this movie, we were trying to think of what is kind of one of the epitomes of summer vacation.
Yeah, and at least for a lot of Midwesterners, the idea of everyone getting a car and driving to a destination is still pretty common.
Yeah.
Granted, I think a lot of the troubles that this movie depicts, I don't think are quite as common anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the movie came out in 83.
Yeah, and the movie came out in 83, and it admits that it's aimed very much at the 1983 audience. It's not trying to be timeless. Yeah. It's very much trying to live in its moment.
Yeah, and I actually learned a little bit on this, because before Vacation, I had never seen this movie in its entirety in one sitting.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah, it was on TV a lot. I'd seen it in bits and pieces. I didn't realize National Lampoon was a humor magazine.
See, okay, I didn't either, and then I got made fun of at the family picnic for not knowing that. So apparently really big, really popular, and then, by the time we were old enough to read it, it was discontinued.
Well, yeah, I did a little bit of looking up on it, mainly Wikipedia.
Of course, my favorite source.
But it was a humor magazine that ran from 1970 to 1998 and was influenced by 70s comedy.
Yes.
It was a spin-off of Harvard Lampoon, and it was founded by Doug Kenny, Henry Beard, and Robert Hoffman of Harvard University.
Yes.
1967.
Yep.
And also I learned there was quite a few spin-offs that came from it. Animal House.
Oh, yeah.
The entire Vacation franchise, and Van Wilder.
Yep. All of which I think a lot of people think of as traditional classic comedy.
And on top of that, I didn't realize that John Hughes wrote the screenplay for it, and it's based off a short story he wrote for National Lampoon called Vacation 58.
Yep.
In case you don't know who John Hughes is, he wrote 16 Candles.
Yes, he
Weird
did.
Science.
Yep.
Pretty in Pink. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
A classic.
Planes, Trains, Automobiles.
Another reiteration of my life.
Home Alone 1, 2, and 3.
So, the good one, the okay one, and the what are we doing here one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beethoven, which I did not realize that.
I love Beethoven, mostly because I love the dog. The dog's adorable.
I have never seen this other one. Dennis the Menace.
Okay. You would hate Dennis the Menace. It is everything that you would despise in a movie.
Well, I will maybe not watch it.
Dennis the Menace is very Peanuts in feel. But slightly more, like, if Peanuts is a life lesson, Dennis the Menace is just some slapstick.
Fun.
Yeah.
Other notable works, 101 Dalmatians.
The live action?
Yeah.
I love that one. It's like my two favorite characters come together to be bad guys, Dr. House and Mr. Weasley.
We owned the soundtrack for that when we were kids.
I watched that one, and then I watched the second one when I was babysitting, and since then I've never gotten the image of Cruella de Vil as a cupcake out of my head. Yeah. 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 They were iconic.
I remember this movie fondly. I know you don't like this movie, Flubber.
I think it's a jiggly thing. It's too wiggly. It's too squishy. I don't like. Visually, I don't like it.
And the last movie I learned that he wrote, Drillbit Taylor.
Okay, yeah. They all have the same underlying tone of humor, which I think is why they all work. Yeah,
and I just think it. I just didn't realize how, because I knew of him. Yeah. But I didn't know, like, the extent of many of these movies I've seen and somewhat grew up with.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the movies he wrote definitely we grew up with, and then a lot of them our parents hoped that we would grow up with because they thought they were funny.
Specifically for me, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes.
I've seen little pieces here and there, but I've never seen it in its entirety.
It is a wild ride. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very similar humor and writing style to National Lampoon Vacation.
Yes. So, yes. And in the intro, as the movie begins, I found this kind of interesting. The postcards were actually collected by a man named John Marley. Mm-hmm. He is a architectural photographer and documentarian of roadside attractions.
He must have spent a lot of time in Kansas then.
Yeah. One thing I learned from watching this movie, roadside attractions are kind of tchotchke.
Oh, I forget that you weren't forced to go to them as a child.
No, the closest thing I probably went to, like, a roadside attraction when I was really young not even really young, because I don't remember going to a lot of these things until, like, when I was in high school. We went to Ireland. We went to a working, or a somewhat staged town, or education center that was partly built off an old castle.
Yeah, one of those ones that's like a little bit reenactment-y, but
kind
not
of.
really.
Yeah, like my roadside attractions were more so like actual historical places to go to.
Wow, that sounds nice.
Like my first medieval fair was in a castle on the grounds. They had legitimate jousting.
I wish.
And blacksmiths just pounding away.
See, okay, you've been to the Renaissance Fair that's kind of local to us. It's about an hour and a half drive. They also have a castle. It's a warehouse with some stucco on the side to make it look kind of like it's very roughly castle-esque.
Yeah, and it's got all like the different regions and stuff.
I will say there are parts of America where the roadside attraction is historical. However, it's a lot of like battlefields. So you drive up and there's like a stone thing with some names on it and some dates, and you just look at an empty field and you're like imagining it in your head. If you're lucky, you're there on a reenactment day. Yeah. And that's kind of cool, but like only if you're above the age of like, I don't know, 40. Yeah. Or that's like so-and-so lived here. Example, as a kid who grew up in Missouri, I have seen every Laura Ingalls Wilder piece of property possibly imaginable.
I don't know who that is.
It's okay. We'll get to her because one of these days we're going to have to cover it.
All right. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird thing for me seeing that because I've driven by stuff like on my way to places.
Well, and you've never been forced to drive through Kansas, the mother home of stop-through attractions.
I have. We did. We one time we came back for a Christmas holiday and drove from Ohio to Colorado.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. I had my Game Boy.
Yeah, that's the only way you can get through Kansas.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's weird for me watching what's considered like classic Americana road trips. Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with them to say.
And they didn't even really show what the attraction was because I think the movie assumes that you know what a dumbass attraction looks like, which. It never had occurred to me that there are people who don't actually know what the world's second largest ball of twine looks like.
I do not.
I know where the largest rubber band ball is located. So if we ever go visit my aunt, we'll stop by. Yeah. But like those were legitimately stops that we took every single year on our vacations because it was a place to go to the bathroom and have cheap snacks. And, like, it's something for the kids to, like, run around. There's usually, like, something kid-themed, so that there's at least room to run.
Yeah, so they can get their energy out. And
then get back in the car and drive for another 6 hours.
And fall asleep.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's whole towns that we would drive out of our way to stop at. Example being in South Dakota, there's a town called Waldrug. I think, actually, the store is called Waldrug, but it's the only thing in the town. And I'm not kidding you, on our honeymoon, we counted billboards to Waldrug. There's like 500 billboards pre-Waldrug, and there is nothing between City A and Waldrug.
Yeah, and that's another thing for me too, is I'm still baffled a bit by how many billboards are in the United States, because
it's a lot.
Well, because in Alaska, you don't have billboards because you can't legally put them up.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
It detracts from the scenery, and they want to keep it as beautiful as possible.
Yeah, no, it would definitely ruin the whole, like, wilderness vibe.
Yeah, and in Europe, you don't really have the same thing either. There are billboards, but they're more in, like, the cities and stuff, and they're not along the roadside.
At least from my experience in Europe, it's also not super common to do road trips like what's shown in this movie.
Well, and on top of that, the road trips are at a different scale, because there's a lot of foreign people we've known who are like, oh, I'm going to come to the U.S. I'm going to go to these cities. And it's like, you realize that is a week of travel right there. Because my parents spent, I think it was 2 weeks driving from Colorado to move to Alaska.
Yeah, it's a lot of driving. Yeah. Yeah, and so, like, I don't know. It is a weird, like, concept to think about that there are nuances to this movie that, like, certain people will not get. Mm-hmm. Like the concept of, this is taking them X many days to get from Chicago to what's essentially Disneyland.
Yeah, I think they're heading out to California.
Yeah, it's meant to be Disneyland, but legally we cannot call it Disneyland, so now it's Wally World. With an E, because without an E, I don't know if you know, Wally World is Walmart.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of that now.
Yeah, welcome to Wally World, of capital of the United States.
Which I don't think I'd heard Wally World until I moved here either.
I think it's a Midwestern thing again, because I grew up calling it Wally World.
Well, I mean, even when I lived in Nebraska, I don't think I ever heard anyone call it Wally World.
It's kind of like a grandparent thing.
Okay.
It's like, cool people don't say Wally World.
Yeah.
No. Like your mom might tell little kids we're going to Wally World. Sort of. That's kind of where it's at. So, like, the concept though of, like, driving pretty much from Chicago to Disneyland, like, in our head, we roughly know how long, like, I don't know exactly how long, but I understand that is a multi-day trip, that you're going to be driving, like, 10 plus hours a day if you want to make any type of progress. Yeah. And so, like, from the get-go, our expectations are set that this vacation's going to suck because he had the option to fly.
Well, not only that, how the movie starts is he's supposed to be getting a new car. That's how they're going to break it in, is go on this long road trip.
Which is another, like, I don't, is that like an American thing too? Because, like, I remember we didn't get new cars to break them in, but we'd rent cars to go on our vacations so we wouldn't put so many miles on our car.
See, I don't know, because
like, it's a lot of miles. It's so many miles that, like, legitimately, we would just be like, no, it's cheaper to rent a car than fix our old car to make it work to go across the country.
Well, the first new car I remember my parents getting was the PT Cruiser.
Oh, yeah, that would be...
early 2000s when internet was really starting out, so we didn't know a lot of research on it. And then when we moved back, what my parents did is they bought a Volvo station wagon.
Yeah.
Which... they went up to Sweden.
Got it.
To get it and then ship it back.
I mean, yeah, why not?
To see the car and then have it shipped.
At least they saw it.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we were leaving Germany, the euro was brand new. I think it had only been in actual circulation for like a year at the time, so it was still doing really well.
We briefly had a station wagon too, and I distinctly remember the back seat faced out the back window. And I'm kind of sad that this station wagon, which... is a fake station wagon. They made up this brand of station wagon specifically for this movie. I'm a little sad that the detail that the back seat faced out the back way wasn't included, because we, as children, thought that was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Until you hurled on Highway 11 up North Missouri, because the roads are like a roller coaster and you're going backwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about cars to begin with. I will. Other than... side little architecture tangent.
I love an architecture tangent.
The reason it's called a station wagon is because during the days of the early suburbs, the husbands or the wives would drive the husband to the station in it to drop them off. Hence, station wagon.
Adorable.
This is back when, like, the suburbs were for the super wealthy to take a train into the city. And
honestly, you can kind of still tell that undertone with this movie, because this is a 2-week vacation that this family's taking together. So all 4 of them managed to have time off to do this. Yeah. And they're driving there, which arguably is, at the time period, probably cheaper. Nowadays, it would not be. Like, the gas mileage probably wouldn't outweigh the flight.
Well, depends, I think. It depends on the family and, like, what you want to do.
Let's pretend that they're driving the same station wagon. As someone who used to have one, I can guarantee you that the gas mileage is not that great. So you're stopping a lot, you're burning a lot of gas, and you're hauling a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, flights are expensive too now.
That's true. It'd be a hard press, but man, this vacation is very suburbia in a nutshell.
Yeah, it really is.
Someone described this movie to me once as the main character of this movie is essentially the entire plot of the movie. This is a suburban, white, middle-aged man trying to go on vacation.
Oh, yeah. And I think the original name we had going for the episode, which isn't going to be it, is The Widest Family Takes a Road Trip.
Which, I mean...
It's not wrong.
It's not wrong, but, like, it also doesn't read great.
No.
But that's kind of how this movie is. Like, everything about it is, like... I have family members who are exactly like this. Yeah. I've been on road trips that are pretty much to a T minus the dead aunt and the dog. This is pretty close to how I've been on some road trips. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, no. But anyway, so the movie starts off. We haven't even really talked about it yet.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase shows up with Rusty to get their new car.
I love how this character is just Chevy Chase.
It's Chevy Chase.
It's just Chevy Chase.
Yeah, but anyway, he shows up and gets kind of screwed over in getting his car.
I think this point is really important to setting up Chevy Chase's character, because we establish really early on that this man is not bright. He's not overly smart for a movie, but he's also not so dumb that he just lets everything happen to him. He's not Mr. Bean level dumb.
See, I don't know Mr. Bean, so...
You might like Mr. Bean. He's very European.
Okay.
But, he's just smart enough to know that he's dumb, which means that he has to, fool everyone around him to thinking that he's not dumb, including himself.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who thinks he's smarter than everyone else and is always getting won over.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I love this scene too, because it's just so cheesy, because his car gets crushed and he's like, you know what?
Yeah, they've been there maybe a minute. His car's already totaled.
Yeah, and he's trying to get sold this other car, and he's like, well, you know what? I don't want it. I'll just take my car home. And they wheeled the car crushed back over.
Which, adorable. I love it.
And so from this, he also plans their trip. He's going to show them how to do it, which...
I did not have any of the devices he was using as a child growing up. We were limited on technology as a kid. I don't understand how he programmed a car to drive across America with no roads, and yet his children can hack it and mess with him. What type of programming was this? I feel like we've gone backwards in computers.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is I don't know. I think, but I who collect old video games,
yes,
and systems, I don't know, it feels so dated, because if I remember right, they're using an Atari controller.
The boy is.
But I don't think the system's an Atari, from what I remember.
I know the big black one, because I feel like one of my family members had one, and of course is long gone. Yeah. But the other thing is that this is very accurate to how people used to plan vacations, was... Because there wasn't a ton of internet available. You bought a guidebook, usually, and, you legitimately bought a road map, and you highlighted the road you were going to go on, and you hoped you made it.
Well, and that's I don't know. This movie's weird, where it's such a staple in American comedy. Yes. But it's so dated, where,
it's really dated. Almost to the point where it's like a time capsule.
Yeah, which, I mean, is kind of a great thing, too, because this was how people used to travel, and this is how we travel.
I was the map person until my family realized I'm slightly dyslexic, and that wasn't good.
Yeah, we traveled like this up until, I think, when we first moved back to the lower 48, when we had Garmin's.
Oh, I remember the old Garmin's, and they were, revolutionary. And I distinctly remember my grandpa not trusting it. He thought the map, it was wrong. The map was better.
And in some cases, the map was better.
I will say, for current Garmin's, I still think sometimes the old map is still better.
Well, maybe in the U.S., because we really started using the Garmin when we moved to Italy.
Yeah, I feel like that'd probably be easier, because there's a lot of roads down here that even Google doesn't bother to drive on. But to get to my aunt's house, you have to go on that street.
Yeah, and now most cars have it programmed into them. You have a built-in navigation device.
Yeah, if you've never had to drive a car where you don't have your cell phone available anymore, you really don't know the constant level of terror in the background of driving, wondering if you're going the wrong way on a multi-day drive. Yeah. Which, I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where I don't know if kids nowadays will watch this movie and get the same stuff out of it, you know?
I don't think they will either. And I think we're at that weird age of the advancements in technology / also relying on such old archaic technologies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be I am very interested for the next generation to get old enough to see two tits on a screen to let me know if any of this truly resonates.
Phases them. Yeah, cuz
I know they'll understand the concept, but there's a level of terror in not having a constant map yelling at you while you drive that you didn't know you had until you got your smartphone.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even how the movie starts off, too, with them taking their road trip is, well, for starters, they knock the luggage off.
Which, hilarious. I love it.
But then when they're on the road, they start singing.
Which, again, is hilarious, because, like, this is also during a time period where, and it's shown that both the kids have probably CD players or Walkman. Which I had one growing up as well because it was just low enough technology that my mom thought it was fine.
I'm going to Google this real quick.
It was maybe a tape player because I had one of those too.
I think it would still probably be too expensive because apparently the Walkman was invented in July 1st, 1979.
Dang.
So this is only 4 years after it, so I'm pretty sure it still would have been bit expensive. But that's the thing is, like, well, the last time I went on a road trip with my family, I get really bad motion sickness now, so I can't read in the car. I can't draw in the car. I can't play video games in the car, one, because I play a lot of RPGs, so a lot of text reading.
Yeah, which doesn't help.
But my youngest brother, who was with us, was listening to music the whole time, and we had to, like, hey, Tanner, we got a question for you. Yeah,
that's how most of our car trips were, too. And, like, even when I was younger and we didn't have a bunch of technology, we still had one Game Boy between my cousin and I, which meant we had a grand total of 3 games, one of which was Shrek Wrestling. Which,
oh, God.
Let me tell you, not a great game.
No, it's not. I've seen it.
It's pretty garbage. So we really only had 2 games, which was Mario, which we couldn't beat the second world on.
Yeah.
And a Scooby-Doo mystery game, which was story-based plot. And so, like, once you beat it, you were done with the game. And we were driving for 5 days. So we entertained ourselves very similar, minus the singing. We didn't sing. We did listen to CD, 2 of them, the entire way.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, as a kid, I don't know,
I take for granted, too, the fact that, like, even nowadays, we get a lot of radio variety on the road. Even in small towns where, like, oh, you still only get 5. That's 2 more than I had as a kid.
Yeah, we're not back in the day of, like, Children of the Corn, where you had religious preacher and not so irate religious preacher.
You can at least get country just about everywhere now, which maybe not your cup of tea, but I mean, that's pretty good.
You can get rock everywhere now, too, for the most part. Like,
yeah, like,
I mean, there's such a variety now. And then on top of that, we now have podcasts. We have streaming to our phones.
And on top of that, while the movie does make a point that the dad is interested in stopping at a bunch of these small roadside attractions, most of those are still over major roads and highways.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a little out of the way, but it's not, like, out in the boonies sort of out of the way.
Yeah.
Which, nowadays, you'd probably get 20 or 30 stations the whole way. You'd have to change them as you go, but you'd have radio pretty much the whole way. Or, if you've got a really fancy car, you've got that Sirius radio thing where you've got a billion things and they never change.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. We're being a little bit too nostalgic and just...
maybe. But, like, I don't know. The beginning of this movie sets up this whole thing really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a weird... It's going to be one of those movies, if I show it to a nephew or niece, I'm going to have to explain some technology to them. Like, I'm supposed to get the collector's edition of Ringu.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have to explain corded phones, VHS tapes, and all this other technology that we grew up with, too. But,
yeah. And beds that take quarters. We'll have to explain that one, too. They don't make those anymore.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
No. And so, as they're driving along, they start seeing their roadside attractions. They go to St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, St. Louis. Which is one of those things where, like, that's kind of where our family would have been like, all right, we made it. Time to go somewhere else. And, like, we would spend a couple of days in St. Louis. They pretty much drive through St. Louis and call it good.
Yeah. Well, kind of. I mean, this is where they actually have that not so socially acceptable scene.
Yeah.
Or socially sensitive scene. It's a very poor depiction of... What's a term for it? They're
trying to show poverty and ghetto, but in a way that the family is uncomfortable and kind of fearful because they haven't experienced it before.
Quote unquote, the bad part of town.
Yeah.
Terminology, probably that's more fitting of that time.
Yeah, and instead of showing it in a realistic sense where maybe there's people out and about, but it's not all just crawling with obvious criminals, pimps, and workers of the night. It's not
even that. It's specifically a black community.
Yeah,
well, let's not beat around the bush.
No, it's all black
it's a
community.
bad depiction of the black community.
It is, and it's also a bad depiction of just poor parts of the city in general, because it makes it out that, like, they've accidentally ended up here, which you don't usually accidentally end up in a neighborhood when you're trying to drive through St. Louis. You got off somewhere and you were too stupid to turn around.
And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah,
But even Harold Ramis has gone back and said he wishes he hadn't done that scene that way, but...
Yeah, and...
Because even in the 80s, that was still not...
Yeah, it wasn't even good when it wasn't even normal when it came out.
No, exactly. But I do like the one part in it where he's asking the pimp the directions, and the pimp tells him, "Fuck you, man.
Fuck your mama.
Fuck your mama.
Fuck your mama." And while the scene is very insensitive and could definitely have been done in a much better way and still got the same effect, I did get a really good chuckle when they hear a gunshot and the whole family goes, "All right, roll them up," and they start cranking the windows up, because I grew up with a very conservative family where if we drove downtown, my mom was always worried about people reaching in the car. And so we would lock our door and roll up the window because there's a lot of stoplights in the city we grew up in.
Yeah.
And they were stoplights where a lot of homeless people would stand with signs. And my mom was always worried that they could just reach in and grab her.
Yeah.
Which, different fear than what they were trying to show. But the comic of that level of panic over something that really shouldn't be a panic for them. That, I think, was what they were trying to show and failed, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It also ties in just to, like, how media portrayed a lot of things back in the 80s. And even 90s. I mean, there were all the panics that everyone did, spouted out. Like, for the one that I've been specifically following and doing a little bit more reading into was the Satanic Panic.
Oh, yeah. That one was... We would not have made it through.
No. I mean, we still have repercussions of that today.
For sure. For sure.
And I mean, we still have repercussions of representation of other people and from these films as well that we're still dealing with.
Yeah, this movie is a very whitewashed movie, not just because the movie's about a white family, but just the way it's portrayed as a whole.
Yeah.
But, I know they recently remade a sequel of this movie.
Yes, where Rusty is the dad.
I'm kind of hoping that maybe in another 10 years' time, we could see maybe a rehaul of the story in general and update it a little bit.
Or you know what? Just make a new movie altogether. Like, doesn't even have to be tied to it. Just make another road trip family movie. Yeah, a vacation movie.
Because when this movie when they were trying to pitch it, there was a lot of people who thought it wouldn't do well because it was a road trip style movie and that it'd be too episodical. And this movie clearly showed that no, that sort of storytelling works really well if you do it right. So maybe this genre in general could use a revisitation. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it would have the same level of interest, because I have seen the remake or the sequel.
Yeah.
And it's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's just not great.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I still had fun with it, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. Part of which is this movie's, while sprinkled with really talented actors, Chevy Chase's performance is really what we're here to watch for this movie, I think.
Oh, yeah.
His reaction is the embodiment of a lot of us father figures or uncle figures. Mm-hmm. A lot of his head movements, his bobbings, his sidetracking of I meant to do that, or it's supposed to be like that, or it's a feature.
Like him falling asleep in the car.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Because he's such a good actor at that sort of thing, I think for this specific formula, Chevy Chase is kind of, that's why it worked so well.
Yeah, exactly. He is
this man.
Exactly. And so another scene I like is when he falls asleep and the car's just hurtling down the road,
street. Yes.
Going through neighborhoods, does a 180 in the road because he wakes up in the middle of it. That was done in one take, by the way.
Very impressive.
It is very impressive.
Especially in that car.
Yeah. And then they
just end up in a motel.
Yeah. They're like, okay, we're here. We're going to rest for the night.
This is the other thing that I wonder how well it will age, is when we were kids, and I don't know how well this translated for you as a kid in Europe, but a kid in America, motels were not all seedy, weird places like they've kind of become now. We stayed in motels for most of our family trips just because it was what was available. There wasn't a lot of hotels everywhere.
Well, and I think the proliferation of horror movies and using specifically like the Bates Motel or Vacancy, those movies have kind of perpetuated the urban legend of... Yeah. I mean, there are some motels that are like, you don't want to go there.
Oh, there's some that you can see a mile away and go, that's got roaches. I'm good.
That's a crack house. I'm not going there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are a lot more conscious about their family's safety when staying in new places. And unfortunately, motels just kind of check all of the nope boxes for that. And so, yeah, I don't know how... because I remember I was watching this with my husband, thinking to the back of myself, that would not be a work-approved stay location. That would not fly. And, remembering, oh yeah, back when I was a kid, there was a pool in a motel, and it was clean, and it was fine to swim in. That was the feature. That's where you stayed. It was fine. And now, you probably wouldn't. You'd probably stay in a big major chain hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, similar vibe, but I don't know, there's something, all motels, even nice ones, were all just a little bit gritty. Everything was just a little bit dirty, but not enough for you to be upset. Just a little tiny bit.
And I mean, that's the thing. I don't think Europe doesn't really, from my memory of it, doesn't really have the quote-unquote motel. I mean, you have the hostels.
Sure. Which
are pretty common. I think that's probably the closest thing you have.
Yeah.
But for the most part, cities are close enough where if
you
it's
can
a day...
make it in a go.
Exactly. You can make it in a day or 12 hours.
Yeah.
Or you just stop in a city and you make sure you have you plan out the reservations in between.
And I kind of want to group all the motels in this movie into kind of one lump, because they all very much the same motel in different cities. There's always a pool, there's always 2 floors, and there's always a bed that's it's not dirty, but it's also not clean.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
And the kids getting their own room, which nowadays probably wouldn't happen. Everyone usually stays in the same room, either for money's sake or because then you can keep an eye on everyone. Unless you're teenagers, then it's you get your own space. These kids aren't teenagers by any stretch of the imagination. They're preteens at best.
See, I don't think I ever really had that experience, because Europe, their hotel system is much different. You pay by the person.
Oh, see, yeah, no, you pay per room here.
Yeah, exactly. And so my parents would say,
smuggle one of you kids in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We do that, but with breakfast, because you pay for the room, and then a lot of them you get a continental breakfast. And so if we're going to go visit a family member, especially a college kid or a high school kid, you go and then you sneak them in the back door so they can eat free breakfast.
Yeah, I've been missing European breakfast, honestly.
Me too. I can't find a good croissant here.
I'm thinking Brochin.
I also can't find that.
Yeah. But anywho, at this part, I didn't realize this movie was rated R.
Yeah, the only scene my husband remembered from this movie was titties.
Yeah, no, the
only scene he remembered.
See, that's the thing. I didn't know there were tits in the movie.
There are 2 sets of tits in the movie.
Yes, there are.
Both of which to the same person. Usually you get 2 different tits. This is one lady twice.
No, 2 different. His wife, when he does the psycho scene.
Yeah, his wife, and then his wife again when she jumps in the pool. The other guy, I don't know if you get to see her boobs. Oh. Maybe you do.
I
wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It was just weird for me because I've seen Christmas Vacation, and that's all the vacation movies I've seen.
And arguably, Christmas Vacation, I think, is one that more people still connect with. I know that one's a Christmas classic that comes on every year, I think, still on ABC or something.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, I don't think Vacation is on TV as much anymore. At least not as heavily as Christmas Vacation.
I think it's still on, older channels, because I haven't had cable in almost 10 years now.
Same. I'm relying on visiting family to know what's on. But...
Exactly. So I don't know the passing trends of television anymore, or what's even aired, because last time I was there, I think Die Hard with a Vengeance was still the
Oh,
prime FX movie.
Of course it is. But I distinctly remember this movie being on TV, kind of on a nonstop repeat sort of thing, kind of like this one and like a couple others that are similar, where it's R-rated, it's for adults, but it's not so much that if your kid got caught watching it, it'd be the end of the world.
Where on TV, they can edit out those couple little scenes or cut the parts where you see tits.
Yeah, and then it's perfectly fine. So,
yeah,
I mean,
stupid, whatever.
But fine.
But yeah, I don't know. And then they go on to the Western town.
Just the Western town, which my husband and I agreed is probably somewhere in Kansas.
If I remember right, I think it's a back lot in California that's used specifically for Western scenes. Because it is the most stereotypical Western town. They go to a saloon. Yep. Chevy Chase is being an asshole to the
poor guy working behind the counter. I'm not even sure that man was supposed to be the waiter. I think he was just fixing something.
No, he was the bartender.
Yeah, he gets pretend shot, which hilarious. I've never seen that happen. That would have made my family vacations much more interesting, but I've been to fake saloons like this. Granted, I don't think as many people get to dress up anymore. I've been to them where they're decked out, but the waiters are still in jeans and a t-shirt sort of thing.
Yeah. I've never had this kind of... We'll
take you to Wyoming someday. That's where all of my experiences with this sort of thing happened. Okay. And granted, it was fun. As a kid, I really liked it. Getting to look at all the decorations was cool. You feel like you're in the West. It's a very tourist trappy thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you do these sort of vacations, that's kind of the point, is you want to go to the tourist trap place because that's the only thing to do. You're not a local. You don't know local things. And back then, there wasn't a Yelp to tell you what cool local thing there was to do. You did whatever the billboard said.
Well, and I think that's just also a difference of how I used to travel and I guess how you used to travel. Because when we go to a place, normally we would ask the front desk person.
Your motel. You'd just ask them where to go.
Yeah, and just like, hey, what's a good local restaurant to go to?
And you usually got told whatever tourist place or if you got lucky, you got like a mom and pop shop down the street. Those were kind of your two options, but it was always something close or a destination.
Ours was normally like a mom and pop or just a local restaurant. Because, I mean, that's what you had. They wouldn't recommend like a chain restaurant like a lot of places here do. Like, the only times I've gone scoping, it's just like, well, here's this chain, let's stick with this.
Well, and on top of that, a lot of those chain restaurants are kind of new. I distinctly remember growing up when we went to these towns, your food options were either the grocery store and you made your own sandwich, or you ate at the mom and pop store. Okay. Those were kind of your two choices. If you were lucky, you had 3 mom and pop stores. One that did Mexican, one that did Americana, and like maybe a steakhouse.
Huh. Interesting.
I mean, when you're driving through the Midwest, your stops are going to be in small towns. That's just kind of the name of the game, especially if you don't have a Siri to tell you how far it is till your next stop.
Interesting.
You stopped where you were hungry.
Yeah, I'm learning quite a bit about the Midwest in the past couple years.
We'll slowly induct you. One of these days we'll make the variety of macaroni salads. None of them have cheese.
I still don't get your guys' cuisine. There are so many dishes you have introduced me to that I don't get.
Yes.
Like, it's just...
I'll make you the one that Brian hates, but you'll love. It's cold, kind of pickled canned green beans.
Yeah, I'm not going down there. That's a whole other thing.
That's pretty much how this feels. And so watching this scene where she's at her cousin's house.
Well, that's actually kind of a good transition too, because I wanted to get to Uncle Eddie.
Uncle Eddie is I have relatives like Uncle Eddie.
I was going to ask you because I have...
Yeah, I totally have relatives like Uncle Eddie.
See, my dad's family comes from farm people and small town people, but Germany doesn't have this kind of cousin.
Yeah, so I should say have with a loose term, because I think most of the ones that I physically went to go visit as a child were Aunt Edna aged when I went to see them. So a lot of them have passed on, and their kids have since moved out from the middle of nowhere to somewhere cool, like a city. So they don't live in the, like, legitimately, we went on family vacations to go see great aunts and great uncles who lived by themselves in the middle of North and South Dakota.
Yeah, and that's what we did a few times in Germany. We went to go see our family living around Ulm.
Yeah, and so I have been on the trip where you stop to go see a cousin or an aunt or whoever who you haven't seen them since the last time you made this trip, which for us was a year because we went every year. But some of them, they weren't home that week when we were traveling, so we didn't see them 3 or 4 years. So it was kind of a weird family reunion where, like, you don't really know them. If you're lucky, maybe you send Christmas letters. Nowadays, you'd probably have more interaction because there's Facebook and you can call and text.
Oh, yeah. No.
And, like, there'd be service out there. There wasn't even landlines out to my aunt's house.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do get that. When we went and visited our family in Germany, they hadn't seen my dad since he was my youngest brother's age at the time. So, like, kindergarten, elementary school age. So, like, I was very much the kids in this movie's place. Mm-hmm. So, like, for the parents, like, they're going to go see someone who hopefully they know somewhat. Yeah. But these kids have no idea who these cousins are. They just know that they're there. You know that you're related. The other thing, I think in this one, they do know who they are. Yeah. Because you know they've had a couple family gatherings with them. But they're just kind of... Like, you don't know them. Exactly. Like, the boy doesn't know that they don't have pretty much any form of video game whatsoever. Mm-hmm. He doesn't even really have anything to do other than nudie magazines. He has something to do. He is a teenage boy with piles. A stack of nudie mags. But this is also kind of hilarious because, like, I remember going to my cousin's house that they were out there in the boonies and, like, to the parents, we as kids had stuff to do. We had bikes, there was a swing, there was a play set in the yard. You have things to do, but as a almost teenager, like a 13, 14-year-old, you had nothing to do. You're bored out of your mind. We'll leave it there. So, like... That and the sister smokes pot. The sister manages to get her hand. I don't know if she ever actually smokes it. She wears sunglasses pretty much the rest of this movie, which I thought was a hilarious touch because it implies that she's at least pretending to be high. Yeah. The rest of the trip, but also they mentioned that like maybe she doesn't actually know how to smoke. And there's also like that weird incest comment. Yeah, it's a weird incesty bit, which they just kind of glaze over. My dad says I'm the best kisser. Which is so weird. And I don't also, know, like, kids are weird and teenagers are dumb and weird, so, like, I don't know where that joke was supposed to go. Yeah, it's also kind of, it's a nice, or it's a weird, gap. Yeah. Because, one, these kids, we have realized now that they grew up in suburbia, and the other kids, like, she's talking about, oh, this is my prize cow. I won first, or prize pig. I won first place at the fair, and she's like, does anyone know about it? And she's like, yeah, everybody knows about it. She's like, I don't think you want people to know this. And she's like, why not? Yeah. And that's the thing. I have cousins who are farmers, and it's a different, like, it's entirely different than what you're used to. And as a kid, if you've never left your own suburbia, well, it would be culture shock in your own. Not only that, but place. I think it's kind of a remnant of the era still too. Oh yeah. Because now we're seeing a surgence of, even in our friend group, people who want to go back out and till the land and grow our own produce. Not be stuck in suburbia. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Back to the food a little bit. The hamburger helper burgers. Okay, that is... I don't know a single person who just eats hamburger helper. That's nasty. Okay, cool. That was meant to be nasty, and everyone who's ever eaten a hamburger helper knew it was nasty. I think I've only had hamburger helper once on a Boy Scout trip. Then you're still working off that sodium then. I don't even remember what it was. So hamburger helper is a line of boxed meals where the general gist is you bought a pound of whatever meat it went with, usually ground beef. Okay. And it usually had some type of seasoning pack, maybe a cheese pack, and, like, pasta of some kind, or rice, or something like that. There's a whole variety of them now. They're all usually pretty cheap, and it's really there to make your pound of meat go farther. And taste, and like, if you don't want to try seasoning it yourself. Okay. They are the saltiest things on this planet.
Like, holy crap. So the only thing saving it is that pound of ground beef. And some families even put like 2 pounds of ground beef in there just to kind of like help the situation. So the fact that this man is just eating hamburger helper is really upsetting. Because A, that is dry and crunchy and sad. And B, that's so much salt. But did you catch the girl with her arm in the Kool-Aid? Just swizzling it around?
I did see that. I don't know. It's just...
I've been to family reunions where like there's a relative, usually a kid, and you're told when you walk in, hey, that's so and so. Watch whatever they pick up because they have a habit of licking their fingers and then putting their hand in the food, and then you just need to eat around that.
Interesting.
That's a thing that happens at these family things, and so like this part of the movie, I think, is probably the most genuine to a lot of people's experiences with Midwestern family trips. Because you didn't usually get to go to Wally World. It was hell expensive to go to Disneyland even as a kid. Now it's crazy expensive. You were lucky if you got to go there. So you usually, your vacation was usually spent driving to nowhere places to go see a family member. And if you were lucky, you stopped at St. Louis on the way.
Okay.
That, like, this right here, this whole first part, very much my experience. The second half of this movie is much less realistic to me. But the second half is where the comedy is.
I'm learning a lot about you today.
You're welcome. I got a photo album I should have brought. I've got pictures of all the places they went.
Okay.
Mostly me standing there in a baseball hat because I didn't wash my hair. Because you're at a motel and you're a kid, you don't have to wash your hair. So you're just slimy and gross in the back seat. So when this line comes up where he's like, oh, the stench from the back seat, that's also pretty accurate. Children just are nasty the longer you drive with them in the car.
Interesting. Just
as a heads up, if you ever have to take kids cross country.
I'm learning a lot about you today.
There's a lot. I think this is why this movie is, for a lot of people, a comedy classic, because it very much like Jerry Seinfeld style humor where it's just pointing out the everyday obvious.
Yeah.
Where like kind of the airplane food gag where, yeah, for a lot of us, this is very close to how our trips were. Granted, some of it's a little over the top. Most of this did not all happen in one trip. That would have been the worst.
Okay.
But like, yeah, there's a reason why a lot of us find this, while I think some people could see it really dumb, there's definitely like, you watch this to remember your own vacations, I think.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
But, anywho, so, enough about your family history and your road trips.
Yes. This is the part where we're introduced to Aunt Edna.
Oh, Aunt Edna.
And her dog. Aunt Edna is a classic, what my family calls sourpuss, which means nothing makes her happy, she's always grumpy. Can't nothing you can do about it. And she's decided she's going with them, along with her dog.
Which, the dog is great.
The dog is a wonderful actor. Very, very convincing. It's meant to be, like, on the verge of, like, a rabies dog. Where
oh, God, the dog's just angry.
It's angry at everyone and everything, and no one in this family attempts to, like, solve the dog problem. They just accept that this dog is horribly vicious to them, and they just kind of let it happen to them. The family is constantly being eaten and peed on for the rest of the trip until the dog
pees on their food, and the Aunt Edna keeps eating it.
And Aunt Edna's gross. Just in general, Aunt Edna's kind of gross.
We haven't talked about, real quick, side note, that dog's name was Popeye.
Popeye is adorable.
And the owner had been a game warden in Botswana.
Wow. Go Popeye's owner.
Yeah.
That's ballsy.
Weird little trivia they put in the commentary.
You know, this is why I'm here for commentary. I'd like to know the dog's real name, because it did a wonderful acting job.
Popeye.
Popeye.
But yeah, so we also haven't really talked about recurring character at this point either. There is the buxom blonde babe in the sports car. In the sports car, which you get the gist that the car he originally wanted was probably not her car, but sportier than his current one. Also, he's letting his mind wander. Everyone else is asleep, and he is daydreaming about this beautiful blonde in the sports car. Exactly. I do think this is another part of the movie where, like, it's funny, but, like, it just doesn't hit the same as the rest of the humor. It's just there for eye candy
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. I feel like maybe when it was written, this joke had more substance, but nowadays, like, no one really has an experience to, like, connect with it like the rest of the movie, and yet the joke that comes out of it is funny, but, like, it's not...
The payoff's not great.
Yeah,
especially at the end where it's like, oh, he gets in the water, wakes up the whole hotel.
And then it's just kind of like nothing, like, no bad repercussion happens to him because of this.
No, exactly.
But at the same time, nothing hilarious compared to the rest of the movie happens either. So this is, I don't know.
It's weird.
She's weird, she's there, but, like, I guess she's there a lot. She's in the movie quite a bit for a recurring character.
Yeah. I don't know. It just doesn't... It doesn't have the same tone as it did back then. And I think that's one thing that doesn't sit well.
Yeah, there's a couple of different parts of this movie that just kind of don't hit right, which I would be interested to see if, you know, maybe a relook at this movie couldn't work out. Because I think the idea of him daydreaming could be really funny. I just don't see it on this one.
Yeah.
This one and the end of Aunt Edna just weren't quite the same.
No, I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird thing that I guess we just don't have that connection to it.
Yeah.
And that might be it being dated even by the time we saw it.
That's very possible.
Yeah, because at this point they go to out into the wilderness to spend a night in the...
They go camping, which... Y'all's camping's classier than my camping. You camp and you didn't bring a tent. You sleeping on the ground outside. Bye-bye.
Well, and I see, for me, if you went camping in Alaska... I never went camping when I lived there because we didn't own an RV or a trailer because...
Yeah, that's how you want to camp in Alaska.
Bears and wolves.
Yeah. Even, like, if you go far enough south here, like, you gotta watch yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, like... I have heard and seen in TV this concept of, like, permanent tents that you go and rent and you can, like, pretend to camp at. I have never actually seen one in real life.
Boy Scout summer camp.
Yeah, but I feel like Boy Scout summer camp is in its own world, its own universe and timeline.
It's not our rental space.
Yeah, like, you have to pretty much, I think, be a Boy Scout to use those, I think. Unless they open them up during off-season, but...
I don't know. I only went during summer.
I remember my brother going, but I don't remember there ever being an opportunity for non-Boy Scouts to use the Boy Scout camp. And even then, it's not like it was somewhere, like, along the way that you stayed.
Yeah.
So, like, this is another part where, like, maybe to, like, my grandparents, this scene is, like, pretty funny, because, like, oh, yeah, they remember the stinky tents, and, like, oh, it, like, is weird and gross and weird and, like, dirty, and I don't get it. I would have been funnier if they stayed in one of those, like, weird-shaped motels to me. Those are still around. There's some that are, like, duck-shaped, teepee-shaped.
Yeah.
Like, that would have made more sense to me, but I like the concept of permanent tents that I can rent. That sounds cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a weird part for us, I guess.
It is.
And so they continue their road trip. They're heading towards the Grand Canyon.
Which...
And, the dog.
Yeah. This is the other scene that I don't think would probably fly anymore. Like, the other scenes are just weird, minus the, St. Louis scene. But this one, it's almost funny, but it's also not.
It's real... the death of the dog. Yeah. The dog gets dragged behind and his leash is left and he gets pulled over by a cop who gets really pissed off at him. And, like, the copper in the scene is a little funny. Him trying to get out of whatever, pretending that he was speeding, that's a little funny, but, like, I don't know, the joke just doesn't land. Mostly because I think, again, like we've said, this movie's meant to be based off of your own personal experiences. Mm-hmm. I can't say I know a single person who has ever left a living creature tied to the back of their car and then driven down a whole highway, hearing the jingle as they go and not pull over and figure out what that is. Yeah. Coffee cups, phones, a whole baby album when you're driving home with a newborn? Sure. All of that makes sense to me. A full-on, angry, violent Labrador or Golden Retriever? It's a mutt of some kind.
You know, like, it's not small.
Yeah.
It's a full-size angry dog.
Fun bit about that scene. The whole dog bit was ad-libbed by the cop.
The cop did a great job.
He did.
I will say, out of the entire scene, if there is something positive to take away from it, the cop's delivery of him reminiscing and being sad, that's pretty funny. Like him on the verge of tears is like a big manly cop's cop. That's pretty good.
Not so funny bit about that. Ramus received multiple letters of people saying they related to this because it had happened to them before.
See, okay, if we have a Where's Baby ad on the radio all the time, maybe we need to have a Where's Poochie ad.
What's Where's Baby?
You don't listen to the radio in your car. You listen to CDs, don't you? Or like your phone and stuff.
Yeah, for the most part.
So, and I don't know if this is everywhere, but...
Minus buy our CDs and spread the word to teach the Mormons that the Native Americans are really the descendants of Israel.
I forgot you've currently picked up listening to very out there evangelicals on the radio.
It's fun.
They are hilarious. So one of the ads that, and it's been an ad for a very long time, is the Where's Baby ad. And the whole concept is like, don't let your kid be in the car in 100-degree heat.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole point of the ad.
Okay, I've never heard that before. I know the ad you're talking about. I've just never heard it referred to it as that.
My husband and I constantly, when we hear that, whisper to ourselves, "Where's Baby?" Because we don't have children.
Yeah. Well, your rabbit's your baby.
And he doesn't get to go in the car.
No. But, anywho, as they're driving along the way, we find out Aunt Edda's pissed off at them, but...
Yep, but it's okay, because now she's dead.
Yeah.
And I do like that while this is another weird part of the movie, and like, I don't know how funny all of it is, I do appreciate that as a comedy length and pause, they let Aunt Edna be dead for a really long time.
Uncomfortably long, too.
Like, because there's a part where Mom mentions, like, she's sleeping, let her be. And at that point, as an audience member, you think to yourself, no, she's dead.
Well, okay, this is a little bit after that, or after a part, because they get lost, their car breaks down.
I forgot they get lost in the desert because he jumps a ended road.
Road's closed.
This part, to me, is the most hilarious part of the whole movie.
See,
I love this because of his stupidity and stubbornness.
Oh, yeah. Well... I mean, it's just, we've all been there where someone's driving in a car and they say, oh, I know the way. This has to be the right way. And I'm like, no, I think you were supposed to take a left or right back there.
Pretty sure I saw the exit sign 2 miles back.
Yeah.
And
he what did I refer to this as? I called it the Dukes of Hazzard jump.
It was very Dukes of Hazzard-esque.
Yeah.
When I was doing research about this movie, there's a lot of scenes that are directly, like, influenced from other movies.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like while maybe they didn't directly say this one is Dukes of Hazzard, you get the vibe.
Oh, yeah.
You get the flying car vibe real good.
Oh, yeah. And even me, who's only seen the shitty remake of Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I at least know the jump.
It is the jump, only with an entire family with luggage strapped to the top.
Yeah.
And the following part where he has his, like, heartful speech with his son, even that part of the comedy, I find that hilarious, because he's trying to have this, like, heartful talk with his son about how when he was a kid, this was about the age he grew up, and, like, you're gonna be fine.
First time he had a beer with his dad.
Like, it's supposed to be all, like, sentimental and, like, man to son sort of thing. He forgets his own daughter's name halfway through the speech. Hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny.
All the while, Rusty is chugging down that beer.
He's just guzzling the beer.
Yeah.
And I like this scene because there's not a part where the characters seem bothered by their own stupidity. At no point does Rusty get in trouble for chugging the beer. In fact, his dad's just like, don't tell your mom. There's not a repercussion for him forgetting his own daughter's name. He gets done talking to his son. He's like, all right, off to the desert I go. Bye. Like yeah. They're all blissfully ignorant of their own stupidity. And I kind of like it.
And that's a good point, and I'll get into that a little bit towards the end too. But at this point, they he gets he ends up wanders the desert.
Wanders the desert.
And he gets highway robbery happens to him. He gets his all his cash stolen.
Yep.
And they're gonna ask he needs money, so he's asking Aunt to dig through Aunt Edna's purse, and this is when we find out she's dead. This is
when they announce she's dead. However, there's a couple of brief scenes beforehand where Aunt Edna's supposedly asleep in between the two kids, flopping around, and you're like, Aunt Edna's dead.
Yeah.
Aunt Edna's very dead.
Yeah.
Which, I don't think the Aunt Edna being dead part is the part that bothers me, because that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I can suspend belief long enough to find that humorous.
It's a Weekend at Bernie's kind of
it's very
sketch.
And I like the kid's response to being like, a dead person breathed on me. This part is hilarious. The next part, they get to some cousin who we're not really introduced to because
he's gone.
And they were going to stay here. Apparently this is her son, maybe. This is someone that Aunt Edna wanted to be dropped off with originally.
At Norman's home.
Yeah. He's not home. It's downpouring. And so we just leave her in a chair in the rain with an umbrella and a note pinned to her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before that, they also strap her to the roof of the car.
I think that's the part that
with the tarp.
Yeah, I think the roof car part is the part that probably wouldn't fly nowadays. I think you could still get away with Aunt Edna being dead in the rain in a lawn chair waiting for Norman to deal with her. But the car part, oof.
Yeah.
Funny, but oh.
I mean, at this point, everything we can think of for an acceptable 80s comedy has happened to the family, and they're saying, you know what? Let's just head back.
We're done. I'll ask my mom for money, and we'll just fly home. They're not even going to take the car home. Wife just wants to leave.
Yeah, because the car is still in shit condition, and
the car is so terrible.
It's my favorite part of that of the movie.
Yes.
We will have fun. We're going to go out there. We've made it this far. We're 6 hours away, and you want to turn back?
No, we're going to have fun, damn it.
We're going to go to Wally World. Praise Marty Moose. Move over, Disney. There is a new moose in town.
I also appreciate that Wally World, when you originally hear of it, they're singing the Wally World theme song, which is just a remake of the Mickey Mouse Club song.
Okay.
Which it occurred to Brian and I while we were watching this that there's going, rapidly, there are going to be people who have never heard the Mickey Mouse Club theme song.
I've never heard it.
The only reason Brian and I have heard it is because our parents liked it. And so they would sing it to us, and we'd be like, the frick is that? And then it'd get played to us being like, what do you mean you don't know what the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse song is? So when they're singing the Marty Moose song, it's to the tune of the Mickey Mouse Club song, pretty much.
Okay.
It's not enough for Disney to sue them, but it's real close. Which is pretty much the theme of the entirety of Wally World.
Okay. Yeah, no, I figured as much.
Also, Marty the Moose looks strikingly like a different animated moose.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they just kind of took Disney, obviously, as their main source, and then went, what else can we shove in here?
A lot.
Everything.
And so they stay at a hotel.
Yep.
No one's happy with Clark Griswold.
He's having a rough time. He's not happy with himself either, I think. You can kind of tell that he's angry because he's not making his family happy. It is a lot of everyone's upset and tired.
Yeah, and this is when our final...
a final boobs.
Our final run-in with the eye candy of the movie.
Yep.
Not saying the other woman's not pretty, but she's
not meant to be the eye
candy. She's not the pinup girl that the other one is.
She's supposed to be a mom, despite the fact that she's forever in makeup, even after coming out of the shower.
Yeah, and Clark gives a shitty, I used to be this.
It's so reminiscent of my dad owns Nintendo.
Or, my uncle works at Nintendo. He told me this, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be under the truck.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that, only at adult level. And she clearly knows she's clearly smarter than him. And she's letting him play this card.
He's always being one up by someone else because he is too confident in who he is.
Yes. And this is, I appreciate that the eye candy girl actually interacts with him. Because if she had just been along the road with them, it would have been even dumber. So the fact that they do have this interaction, I like.
Yeah.
I don't even hate the part where he jumps in the pool and wakes up the whole motel. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's pretty funny.
Major shrinkage.
Major shrinkage. But the part that, I don't really comprehend, but I guess because it's an 80s comedy, it's gotta happen, is his wife does not seem angry at all that he was nudie swimming with this other girl.
And he almost cheats on her.
He gets very close. He even admits to his son that he's, swimming with another girl. He's like, no, it's the waitress. Totally a waitress. And the son's like, oh, yeah, of course. Do you think Mom will buy that?
Yeah,
There's no repercussion for any of his bad choices.
No, and that's the other thing that I don't think aged very well.
Yeah.
Because also the wife is it's almost, you can do no wrong. As long as he doesn't cross that line, he's still good.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, wait, I can be fun too.
Yeah, and especially the turnaround of how long her forgetting that he was naked in a pool with another woman.
Yeah.
It was very short. Within maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah, and especially for, American sensitivity.
Yeah, and this movie was, targeted towards, the atomic family.
Yeah.
Husband and wife, 2 kids, a dog, picket fence. Cheating is not part of the atomic family.
No. And now we've glossed over all of his character flaws, and now everyone's back together. Oh,
and everyone's happy again.
Wally World's within our view.
Yes, they all just needed a good night's sleep, I guess. I don't know.
It's the one thing that I don't particularly find funny.
No. However, the last scene of this movie, honestly, it could have been just this for me.
Oh yeah,
him robbing Wally World.
Not robbing Wally World. Taking it hostage.
He took Wally World hostage. This seemed to me.
I love them showing up to begin with. Just because
they pull up. If you've never seen this movie, they pull up. They park at kind of the back of the lot, and you, as a spectator, see the 8-lane highway to enter Wally World, and go to yourself, "There's nobody here." They get all the way to the front of the park before they realize that the park is closed.
Closed for maintenance.
Closed for maintenance.
Yeah, we had
and the running scene in the slow motion, which is just a little bit too long. That's gold to me.
Yeah, see, I had a very similar experience. I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Disney World Paris.
Oh, fancy.
Well, our aunt, we were there with our aunt, and she wanted to do 20 billion different things in 3 days.
Of course.
And she's like, "Oh, let's go to Disney World." And we're like, "Well, let's go tomorrow. They'll only be open. We'll get there and it'll be only open for an hour or two." And she's like, "No, we'll be fine." We get to the gates. They haven't started their summer hours yet.
Yeah.
And so that's the closest I've been to Disney World / I don't want to go.
Yeah, I don't think, as someone who suffers from severe motion sickness, I don't think a theme park that's based around spinny rides and dark rides is really going to be for you.
Yeah, as you've experienced from me in Silver Dollar City on the kiddie ride.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so they get there. He's not going to have it.
Nope, he's completely lost his mind.
They go to a sporting goods store, go back to it, confront a security guard who I believe is played by John Candy.
I think so. We watched the movie and he's one of those faces where you know this person.
Pretty sure it's John Candy.
But at the same time, this movie's filled when he's...
John Candy.
Yeah, it is. It's filmed when he's just young enough that, it's kind of hard to recognize him, because I'm used to him in his later roles. And so he's got a much softer face as a younger man.
He's always had a soft face from what I've seen him.
Yeah, he has a very soft shaped face, but there's not the crow's feet at his eyes or anything. His hairline's a little different.
See, if I remember, I don't think John Candy lived to be very old.
No, but he definitely doesn't... His later life pictures and his role in this one are just different enough that you think to yourself, especially because he's not listed as a main star for this movie.
Yeah.
He kind of shows up as this cameo and you go, "I know you. Why do I know you?"
Yeah. But I also like this scene too because the gun has a price tag on it.
It does. It's still got the price tag.
Honestly, this is another thing too, because he holds the guard hostage. They're gonna go on all the rides he wants to.
Which, as someone who used to work as a theme park, you need to just completely pretend for this part of the movie, because this is not how rides work. Mm-hmm. There has to be someone to push a button. Yeah, and apparently for that roller coaster scene, they had to go on it like 7 or 8 times. Oh, that's a lot.
That's a lot. But I don't know, it's such a stupid scene too, because then we find out that it's a BB gun.
It's a BB gun. At worst, it's gonna take out your eye.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too that I just realized is nowadays...
Oh, this scene would play out so differently nowadays.
So differently, but also those guns have the orange tips now, and you have to like actively saw it off or paint it.
You have to really try.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I also like this better than what they originally were going to plan, because originally they were going to go to the owner of Wally World's house.
Yes.
And make him dance and sing for him.
Yes. I like this one better. It's very unrealistic. We've reached the pinnacle of over-the-topness at this point in the movie.
Because the SWAT team shows up
the SWAT team shows up, and then on top of that, the man who is supposed to be Walt Disney, Mr. Marty Moose, creator himself, shows up, gets told their sad sob story, gets introduced to the family, who are all very nice and very white and suburban. And he's like, oh, I'm also white and suburban, and I also know how it is to go cross-country with a family. No worries.
No worries. I'm not going to press charges.
I'm not going to press charges. I'm so sorry we were closed. Our bad. Is the scene funny? Yes. Would this scene play out very differently nowadays? Yeah, I don't think you could really pull this one off and have anyone believe it now.
No, it's definitely something from the 80s.
It's very 80s. But
it's of its time.
It's very of its time. And if you put yourself there are a couple good giggles.
Yeah. Side note, I just read this in my notes.
Mm-hmm.
This movie actually gave rise to the Walmart moniker of Wally World.
Yeah. This is where we get the slogan.
Yeah.
There's actually a surprising amount of scenes and lines from this movie that, even my dad still quotes a little bit. I don't know if he knows he's quoting it necessarily, but, I've heard the phrases pushed around. So, it clearly left an impact. However, do you think we all need to rewatch it?
See, I don't know. That's the thing is, of the movies, of the two I've seen, let's be honest, I haven't seen European Vacation other than the roundabout scene.
Yeah, I think that's the only part I've seen of that one too. And then
Las Vegas Vacation, which I've heard is god-awful.
I wasn't even aware that was a made movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, looking back on it, I mean, it's fun. It's definitely of its time. I don't necessarily consider this one a must-watch.
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation for me is a must-watch holiday movie. This one is fine. I think it, like I said, it's great for its time, but it's just dated to that point where I don't think I could really show a nephew or niece this movie without having to explain a lot of stuff to them or heavily discuss it with a relative before. Because it is an R-rated movie. It's not a movie for children, but Christmas Vacation is.
Yeah, and I think...
Even though I think Christmas Vacation has a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that a lot of the humor is R-rated in this. I think it's
more so the tits.
It's mostly the boobs, but at the same time, like we've said the whole movie, there are parts of this movie that are
gold.
Absolute gold. And even if this wasn't similar to how you grew up going on vacation, those scenes themselves are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. I have some relatable stuff to it too, but
is this movie worth it?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fine in passing, if you're flipping through the channels, and
if it's on.
Let's be honest, there's always something else on now.
Oh, there's so many channels nowadays.
Back maybe when we were kids as well, you had the 4 or 5 channels you stuck to.
Yeah. Nowadays, there's probably something else on.
Or you can switch to something else.
If you have, yeah. I mean, I would say that there are parts of this movie that I would seek out, and if you aren't familiar with them, give them a quick watch, because those scenes, taken as themselves, as little short skits, absolutely hilarious. Absolute gold. Would I say sit down for the whole movie? No. It's funny in bits. You can see where the Saturday Night Live style humor from everyone who worked on this comes from.
Yeah. Classic SNL, because let's be honest, most modern SNL is garbage. Yeah,
this is very much old school. I mean, if you like Clark Kent's humor and you remember him from his old SNL skits, he brings that energy back to this movie for a lot of it. He does a phenomenal job acting throughout the whole movie. But like we've talked about, there's a lot of flaws with this movie, which maybe were overlooked and you could get a chuckle at when it came out. But nowadays, it's just...
It doesn't hold up.
It doesn't. So, yeah, I would say unless you really love Clark Kent, I would give this one a skip.
Do you mean Clark Griswold?
Yeah, my bad.
Clark Kent Superman.
I mean, I was watching that this morning. Watched the animated one again.
Okay, that explains it.
Yeah, no, I rewatched the animated one while I was working this morning. Another gold.
Mwah.
Just absolute animation gold.
So, anywho.
Yeah.
This has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Hail, Marty Moose!